actually just wanted to take a quick moment to kind of set the context for the work of BMI, and as a response to graduate students who wanted to bring people together who cared about Black males. And a year later, we formed the Institute, which I've been with since 2010. As Dr. Howard mentioned, a big part of the work we do is to train undergrads as researchers. And the very first research project that I believe 12 Black male undergrads on this campus did recommended that to support the retention of Black males, we create a class called Blacklimated. And so in 2011, we launched a class that supports Black males here on campus. And in 2014, we couldn't leave the sisters out, right? So we created Sister-to-Sister. Dr. Tunstall in the back there, and you can wave. Along with 2 other women, created a space for Black women on this campus, and again around this idea of retention. So we do research, but we do practice, and it's really a labor of love in the sense that we are fully committed to making sure that once you get here, you graduate from here. And so the presentations that you're about to see are on this work because we're finding that the work that we do makes a difference. Students are retained, students are having a more enriched college experience, and students are graduating who participate in our classes. What was the other thing? Sorry about that. So actually what I wanted to do was just kind of introduce the 2 people who are going to be presenting next. So Joanna is going to present the data on our Blacklimated and Sister-to-Sister courses. And then Khadijah, who I'm excited to introduce, is also an undergrad, but she's from the first cohort of Sister-to-Sister. So this is our first graduating cohort. She also will be attending a Ph.D. program in the fall. And her research focuses on work that we do in the class that centralizes the voices of Black women and their experiences and validates that and affirms that experience. So beyond research, we also do practice and are very committed to the students here and making sure they graduate. So I'm going to bring Joanna up, who's also going to graduate school in the fall to get her master's in evaluations.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Samarah, for the introduction. It is a privilege to be here with you all today and to be presenting some of my statistics. And before I jump into my presentation, I just wanted to take a moment to tell you a little bit about myself. So I do not formally study education, alas, but this upcoming June I will be receiving my Bachelorette of Science in Statistics. So I am a numbers person, a data person, and what I love about it is that you really do tell some really great stories. And when I actually transferred in from Compton Community College in the fall of 2015. And a few months after I transferred in, I met Dr. Howard, I met Masai, and so that's kind of how I got connected with this research. And I haven't taken these classes, but from my own personal experience, my time here at UCLA has been enhanced ever since I've been involved with research and with these people. So I'm really fortunate to be working with everyone in the Blackmon Institute, and that's enough about me, and I'll tell you a little bit about the work that I've done. So I took a quantitative approach to this research, and I wasn't too sure what I was looking for, so I did an exploratory analysis. And what I wanted to do really is, I wanted just to tell a story about who the students were in the class, and I wanted to kind of somewhat quantify their time in the class. I know Samarah talked a little bit about Blacklimated and Sister-to-Sister, but here are just some more detail on it. They're actually courses for first-year students, so incoming freshmen and transfer students, and it's a 4-unit course. It's listed formally under Education 98, Critical Issues in Education, and it's taught by Dr. Howard and Dr. John Lee Tunstall, and by the graduate students as well. It is a very special class in what it intends to provide the students with. So it's intended to create these sort of spaces where students can really talk about their experience here at UCLA and really foster their clarity and understanding. The main purpose of this class is to provide them with the tools and the resources they need to persist and to continue and graduate at UCLA. And so just an outline of what I'll be presenting today. The first part of my presentation will take a look at who the students are, where do they come from, get a little bit of some background on them. And then we'll talk a little bit about their academic performance, so their graduation rates, their GPAs, and we'll compare them to students who didn't take the class. And then we'll look at some of their questionnaire responses. So before they took at the very beginning of Blacklimated and Sister-to-Sister, they filled out these questionnaires, and at the end of the class, they filled out these same questionnaires as well. So we'll be looking at some of the changes in their pre and post surveys. Okay, so the first part again is just demographic data. Who are the students? Where do they come from? Get a little bit of a foundation on the students who've been taking these classes. So as Samarah mentioned, Blacklimated was first offered winter 2011. And you can see here at the bottom that all of the numbers is winter 2011, winter 2012, and the class has grown substantially. So on the left, we see the class sizes for Blacklimated. It started off with 13 students. And the first cohort were students who were accepted fall 2010, and so they took the class that following quarter, winter 2011. The class has grown substantially. As I mentioned, the first cohort was about 13 students, and we saw that it went up to 37 in winter 2016. This past cohort, as you can see, the number of students enrolled in the class dropped substantially. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I personally think that it's a better idea to keep the classes a little bit small. They're more intimate, more personal, and students can engage more that way. And most of the students in the classes as well are freshmen, and we have very few transfer students. We can see that Sister-to-Sister, which started winter 2017, so for the students that were admitted fall 2014, there were no transfer students in the first cohort. And it's been rather consistent for every single cohort. The vast majority, again, are fresh women, men. SAT scores. So the SAT scores fluctuate a lot. And the little dots that you see in the middle, those are the means and the bars are the medians. And we can see that they're somewhat about the same, but we have some really big outliers. Let's see if this works. Yeah, we have some outliers here and outliers here, and all of these outliers have something in common. Any guesses who these students with a 970, with the 1000 SAT scores are? Athletes, yeah. So I really couldn't have imagined who UCLA would have admitted with such low SAT scores, but all of the lower outliers are athletes. So just SAT scores. Another comment on the SAT scores, not all of the students took the SAT. Some of the students were transfer students, or some of the students took the ACT, so this represents about like 40% of the students. About 40% of them took the SAT. But just to comment on the numbers, most of the means and the medians ranged from about 1,500 to 1,700 for both Blacklimated and Sister-to-Sister. Parent income. So these numbers are somewhat similar to the SAT scores, and that's not too surprising. But we can see that most of the means and the medians for the students who've taken Blacklimated and Sister-to-Sister, their parent incomes range from about $40,000 to about $70,000. And we have some, again, a lot of outliers here. I don't know what their parents do, but we got quite a few. And the thing with this is, you know, whenever you see box plots, you know, you think that there's a lot of students, but these classes aren't that big. So when you see these outliers, so for like winter 2017, we have 3 students who have really high incomes. And of a class of about 19, I think that to have just a few students who have really high incomes, I think that's pretty significant. And you see really high incomes for Sister-to-Sister as well. So I thought that was outstanding, seeing just the parent incomes. Single parent households. So I actually did a similar presentation for the statistics department about a couple weeks ago. And I measured this exact same variable for the students in the statistics department, and I must say, these numbers, these results for single parent household is not like this in many other departments or many other classes. If you look at Blacklimated, in both of these images, the blue represents, yes, students do come from single parent households, and we can see that in Blacklimated, almost half, sometimes even more than half of all the students in the class come from single parent households. And I thought that was incredible to see, you know, again, what type of families, what type of places these students come from. And in Sister-to-Sister, it's actually almost the inverse. More of the students in the class don't come from single parent household, but in Blacklimated, most of the students in the class do, more than half. athletic status, so the first two cohorts, there were no athletes in Blacklimated. So winter 2011 and winter 2012, no athletes. But we start to see athletes in the rest of our cohorts, and they've been in every single cohort following. And in Sister to Sister, not a lot of athletes. Again, we only saw athletes in one cohort, and that was the second for Sister to Sister, the students who took the class winter 2016. So just something interesting again, not many classes have all these athletes in their class. So what you saw for single parent households and athletic status, this is very particular to the students in these classes. And in some of these, just to give you like an idea of percentages, in Blacklimated, you have two classes where about 30%, 25% of the students in the class are athletes. Academic performance, so this is really getting into the meat and the bones of the presentation. So this class, as I mentioned, the main purpose is to provide students with the tools and the resources that they need to persist and graduate from UCLA. So in looking at academic performance, we really get to quantify their performance, right? We see their GPAs, and we're going to take a look at their graduation rates as well. So Blacklimated, the first class was offered winter 2011. We've only been able to look at the graduation rates for two of the cohorts because those students have had enough time to graduate. The first class that we're going to look at is students who took the very first cohort, students who were admitted fall of 2010. So this is the first cohort, and there were 9 freshmen, which is what N equals 9 is representative of. There were 9 freshmen who took the class. 78% of those students have graduated, so I think maybe that's like 6 of them have graduated. And what I did is I also took samples of the students who did not take the class, so other incoming black males who were admitted fall 2010, so their counterparts. And I first took a sample of just 9 students, a random sample who did not take the class, and I looked at that graduation rate. So that's what it came out to be. 67% of them from my sample graduated. And then I took a larger sample and I measured that graduation rate, and that one was 76%. So the main point of this is that students who took Blacklimated winter 2011, this first cohort, they had higher graduation rates than their counterparts. So you see that students have somewhat of an impact, and they have much higher graduation rates than the students who didn't take it. Now we're going to look at the exact same thing, but for the next cohort. Students who were admitted fall 2011, this is the second cohort for Blacklimated. There were 13 freshmen in that cohort, and they had a graduation rate of 76%. And I did the exact same thing. I took just a random sample of the population. In statistics, we like to do balanced samples, which means you take the exact same amount, the exact same size to compare it. It just helps with thinking about it. So I took a balanced sample, another 13 students, just like the amount that there were in the first class. And I looked at that graduation rate. 62% of them from the random sample didn't graduated. So again, we see that students who took Blacklimated have a higher graduation rate. Theirs was 76%. Now I took a larger sample and of students who were admitted fall 2011, and they had a graduation rate of 59%. So this is a little concerning, right? So you can see again that the students who've taken Blacklimated, the first one had a graduation rate of 78%, they've had a little bit longer, and the second cohort had a graduation rate of 76%, and all of the others much lower graduation rates. And another comment that I wanted to make, so I know that I am talking about freshmen, and this class is for freshmen and transfers. I did the same thing for transfer students, but the thing is there's only 4 transfer students, 6 transfer students, too few to make any type of conclusion. It would almost be wrong to do a comparison and to say that they have higher graduation rates. It's just too small of a sample size to make any sort of inference on the graduation rate or on the effect. So too small, too few freshmen to really look at those numbers. But theirs was higher as well. But I still couldn't include it. Okay, cumulative GPA. So I know that for the first part of looking at academics, I talked about graduation rates for the first 2 cohorts, but now we're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about the students who just took the class. So students from this past cohort for Blacklimated and Sister to Sister. And again, these are all students who were admitted fall 2016. So I was really happy when I saw these results. For this past cohort, we had 11 freshman students in Blacklimated, and I just did a 5-number summary on their GPA. And I compared it to other students who did not take Blacklimated, so their counterparts, and there were about 103 black males who were admitted fall 2016 approximately. I'm probably missing a few. And so when you just compare their GPAs, one thing that I paid attention to was the mean and the median. So the thing with the means is that because we have very few students, it can sometimes be sensitive to outliers, high or low. So it's also good to take a look at the median as well. And when we look at those numbers, we see that students who took Blacklimated, the freshmen who just came in this fall 2016, they have higher GPAs than their counterparts. And it's not substantial, right? I mean, it's not like going from a 3.0 to a 4.0, but again, all of these results are consistent. And the same comment, I couldn't do the same analysis for transfer students because there were too few, but the results were consistent. So higher GPAs for the students who took Blacklimated, those freshmen, and I did the exact same thing for students who took Sister-to-Sister this past winter. And there were 17 freshmen in this class. And again, their GPAs were higher than their counterparts. Not by a lot, but I mean, GPA doesn't range too much. I mean, it's like 0 to 4. So I think that although these results there aren't two major differences, they're consistent. And I think that says something about the class. And the experiences students have and their ability to perform or their experience here at UCLA, I think that enhances it. The problem with quantitative data or with just looking at graduation rates and numbers is it really flattens the experience, right? It doesn't talk about how students feel in the class. What is it that possibly explains why they outperform their peers? So in order to address that, the flattened experience that numbers give, we did some surveys. We did, as I mentioned at the beginning, we did surveys at the beginning of the course, and we did surveys at the end of the course. And these surveys are really just to measure what it is exactly that changed with the students. And that's what the next part of the presentation is, looking at the results from their questionnaires. So this questionnaire was pretty extensive. I couldn't include all of the results. I think there were maybe about 30 questions. Some of them had like 5. So I just chose a few. So we're first going to look at Blacklimated. I didn't want to include it all together. It'd be too inundating, and I want you all to be able to see the numbers. So we're first going to look at the students who took, the Blacklimated students who took it winter 2017. And this first item asks, please indicate your overall involvement in activities, organizations at UCLA, and the top one that you see is ethnic cultural organizations. The bar that you see at the top is a response pre, the very beginning of class, and then the second is post. And you can see that, let me point it out here. So here we see 27%. The students had 3 options. Their involvement was none, they were occasional participants, or they were yellow active members. The numbers on the right represent what percentage of them considered themselves active members. The number in the middle is occasional participants, and the number here on the right is they had no type of participation, none. So we start off pre-Blacklimated, and we see 27% of them consider themselves active members by the end of the class. 33% of them did, and we can also see that these numbers, that this number in the middle increased. So all these students who were not involved, they jumped into becoming occasional participants or active members. And the same question, but a different item. Now we're going to look at performing arts, music. Again, we can see that this top number decreased. How many of them were not participants? We want this to decrease. We want them to go from no participation to some type of participation, and that's what we saw for performing arts and music. So, I think this kind of speaks to what it is that may be changing with the students. What about their time here is changing? So participation, involvement on activities, organizations at UCLA. So looking at the same questions, but for the females and sister-to-sister from this past winter 2017. Again, exact same questions, just different population. So 29% of them active members, that number jumped up to 38%, and we saw that the number also increased for occasional participants. So again, you see more involvement with ethnic cultural organizations. Second item, performing arts, music. Again, you just see an increase. This one's a little bit, it's a slight increase, but nevertheless, it's there. So 14% of occasional participants, that increased to 24%. And you had a few more active members as well towards the end of the class. So same style, just a few more different items. please indicate how often. Again, we're looking at Blacklimated winter 2017. And this one asks how often you have been encouraged by faculty or staff to reach their high expectations. 33% initially felt that they were frequently or always encouraged, and by the end of the class, that number jumped up to 73. So students feel a lot more connected to faculty or staff on campus, and they're encouraging a lot more to reach high expectations. Studied with other students, I like this one. I mean, for me personally, studying with other students has really helped me, and it's interesting to see that these students are having the same experience as well. I don't know if it's finding your clique or friends or what, but you see an improvement as well. 53% frequently or always studied with other students, and towards the end of the class, that jumped up to 67%. So positive effects for how often they dip 7. This is what we call changes in behavior.